As I said at the top of the show, when we talk about school desegregation, we usually talk about the students who first integrated whites-only schools. But there's another story that is less told, and it's about Black excellence and students and teachers and school leaders who made up our community's segregated schools. Wake County Public Schools does not want those stories forgotten, so here to talk about their new initiative called Respecting Our History, Building Our Future, we have two guests. First, we have Dr. Jim Martin. Dr. Martin is the chair of the Wake County Board of Education, also a professor at NC State University here in Raleigh. Next to him is Mrs. Natalie Perkins. Ms. Perkins is a former Washington elementary student and also a former teacher in Wake County Public Schools. So thank you both for being here.
Excited to be here.
Thank you.
All right, well, this is, I read about this project and then I talked to you, Jim, about it. So tell me about the genesis of it. Like, sort of where did this idea, why did you, as chair of the school board, want to tackle something like this?
Well, history is something I've always been fascinated with. And actually, shortly after becoming a member of the Board of Education, I was able to attend a number of events at Washington Elementary where I got to meet and interact with several of the alumni from the then Washington High School, a very inspiring group of folks. And that probably is what percolated some of the ideas. When I became chair in December, I right away started thinking about what might we do for Black History Month. I didn't want to just do an activity where we'd bring a choir in to sing and to respect history.
Right.
I wanted to see if we couldn't initiate something that would actually build, learn, and tell history. And thinking about that, we bounced some ideas back and forth between myself and Vice Chair Sutton. And this project emerged also having seen the work that the children at Washington Elementary School did in a project last year, working with alumnus Mr. Malone to try to get Washington designated a National Historic Landmark.
Which they
successfully
did.
So I saw that, and Thomas Sayers' sculpture Oberlin Rising was also an important opportunity for me to learn something about Oberlin School that I knew nothing about. And so all of those pieces came together, and I realized that the important story that we tell of integration in Wake County, which is an absolutely critical story, has so focused, as you noted at the top of the show, on the Black students who integrated the white schools. But what we discovered is that everybody went to the white schools because they had been better resourced.
Right.
But there was rich education happening in many of the segregated schools, and that's a history that if we don't document, if we don't tell, is going to get lost. And if we don't know our history, we're not going to have a strong future.
Well, and this is not just history for you, Ms. Perkins. This was your life story. You were a Washington elementary student. Washington High School was the first school in Raleigh for African Americans, built in 1924, and then later became an elementary school. Right. But tell me about, I guess, the idea just even then, this was not that long ago, which is another part that I wanted to have this show about, because I think we have to remind people that this just happened in our short lifetimes. Mm-hmm. How aware were you, as a young girl, as a young woman growing up in what was then the Black schools and the white schools, sort of about this separation and what it was like?
Well, I really wasn't that aware of it, because when I went to school, I knew, even as early as the first time I went, that I was getting an excellent education. I don't remember even thinking about what was happening in the other schools, because our school offered every single thing, and my mother happened to be a teacher too, that I needed. And in fact, I started kindergarten at First Congregational Church, and that was also a part of what Washington became. But the thing that impressed me the most was that all of the teachers there were committed, dedicated, and had a lot of expertise and experience. And so I kind of soared when I got there, but coming from kindergarten, I realized that even though my mother said she didn't know if I would ever learn to read because I would not use the same expression that she did while she was trying to teach me. But the teacher wrote a note and said, "Natalie can read." And she was totally shocked. But our kindergarten teacher took us through so many things that even today in kindergarten and first grade classes, we were exposed to all of those things, foundational literacy, you know, there are words now, educational terms, differentiation, assessing, and all of that, but they did that in their own way.
They were doing personalized learning and,
that's what I'm saying.
And high standards and teaching.
High standards, and it was excellence, not mediocrity.
And this is what
back to the future.
And this is what this is part of what we just heard is what you wanted to. And you know, it's one of the tragedies and sad parts of this is there were so many wonderful teachers in these black schools that frankly didn't have anywhere to go after the schools integrated because, you know, there were a lot of white parents. They didn't want black students in their schools. They certainly didn't want black teachers. And so part of the history I'm assuming that we'll even uncover more is that we lost a generation of teachers.
But I do need to say this. Many of the teachers who left Washington went, of course, to Ligon. But then when they got ready to integrate the schools, those top-notch teachers were asked to go to the previously all-white schools. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But they were doing a job. But in fact, one teacher told me that when she first went to an integrated school, that they were giving her students who were below grade level and all of that. But then they discovered, after she went to them, that she could teach the higher level ones that she had been teaching at Ligon. And once they found that out, and the students and the parents understood that she could teach any high-level math course, then it just became, yes, you know, everybody wanted her.
But Jim, I want to ask you about it. What do you hope to accomplish? I mean, this is, look, Wake County Schools, I live here. Wake County Schools, frankly, gets a little bit of heat sometimes from some that feel like that the Wake Schools focuses a lot on diversity and race issues. I'm sure you've heard this. Never come up. But I mean, why is it important to talk about this? Why is it important to you? Why is it important to Wake County Schools?
Well, I think in the title that we've crafted for this, Respecting Our History, Building Our Future, it's all about our future. If we do not build as a community, we do not build a strong future. I would argue that the integration of the Wake County schools and the Raleigh City schools back in the 70s is why Wake County is the great place that it is today. It's because we built a community, not an us-them place. And you know, when I look at some of the struggles we have to deal with today, we see some of the same kind of segregation happening again. And I really believe that today is a time that we as a community need to make sure that we develop all of Wake County, because if we don't develop all of Wake County, we're not going to have a strong county. It is about our future.
Just last word from you, Ms. Perkins. What do you hope that this effort does?
That it will reveal the excellence of those teachers and the impact not only did it have on the students, but greater Raleigh, outside Raleigh, and even across the country, that they made a difference. They really made a difference.
Well, I hope this project makes a difference. We're going to share some more. We've got 2 more guests coming up who are both alumni of some of these wonderful schools in our history, and we're going to talk to them next. But thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So when we come back, we will be joined by 2 former students of those segregated schools and hear their story. So please stick around.
Education Matters is brought to you each week in part by Paragon Bank, serving others, enriching lives.